Hey friends, Tony here from TL Yarn Crafts. Now I recently released two crochet patterns that I am going bonkers over. They are the Tunisian Snowy Sampler and the Crochet Amour Sampler blankets. These blankets involve creating 20 12-inch squares, each featuring a different Tunisian or traditional crochet stitching technique. If you'd like more details about these projects, including how you can make both of these blankets for free, find details down in the description. Now after you're done making your blankets, we do have some finishing steps, and that is what we're here to talk about today. There are 4 main steps to completing your crochet masterpieces, including adding borders to your individual squares, blocking your squares, seaming everything up, and creating the final border. Keep watching and I'm going to take you through every single one of those steps. Now as I go, I'll be using different yarns, hooks, and blocking supplies, and all of those will be detailed with links down in the description. To make things a little bit easier on myself, I'm going to be using audio and footage from the original finishing video for the Tunisian Holiday Sampler. That blanket is still available and has the same exact premise as our 2 new blankets. But there are some design changes from the original blanket to these 2 new blankets, so keep these 3 points in mind. The original video uses a 6mm crochet hook to add borders to all of your squares and to put the border on the final blanket. For these updated blankets, I'm using a 6.5mm hook for all of the finishing steps. This video does mention that you should block your Tunisian crochet squares face down, which I do still recommend. But if you're making the Crochet Amour Sampler, those are traditional crochet squares and you can block those face up or face down. Totally up to you. In the original video, round 4 of the blanket uses the camel stitch, but to save some time and some yarn, I've decided to change that to slip stitches in these new blankets. Now we've got a lot to cover, so let's get to it, starting with adding borders to your individual squares. We'll add a single crochet border along each side of our squares for the Tunisian Holiday Sampler blanket. The border will make seaming a breeze. Our magic number is 35, meaning that we want to end up with 35 stitches along each side of our squares when working the border. Some squares have more than 35 stitches along each edge and some have less. To get each side to 35, we'll need to add increases and decreases where needed. To make sure I place my increases and decreases evenly, I like to use stitch markers, specifically 2 different colors of stitch markers, one to indicate decreases and one to indicate increases. Grab one of your squares and count how many stitches you have along one of the edges. On this square, I have 33 stitches along this edge, which is 2 shy of 35, meaning I need to increase 2 times along this edge. I'll grab 2 of my increase markers and place them along this edge. Try to space them out evenly, but don't worry about being exact. I'll repeat this for each edge of my square, and then I can start crocheting. This blanket uses a 6.5mm Tunisian crochet hook to make the squares, but I'm changing to a 6mm crochet hook for the borders. I'll join in the rightmost stitch of any side with a standing single crochet. To make your standing single crochet, begin with a slip knot on your hook, insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. You should have 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through the 2 loops on your hook, and this counts as your first single crochet. Single crochet in each stitch along the edge until you come to one of your markers. Based on the marker, you will increase or decrease. In this case, I have an increase marker, so I'll place 2 single crochet stitches in this stitch and remove my marker. At the end of the row, chain 2 and rotate your square to work along the next side. Continue to single crochet in each stitch until you reach your next marker. On this side I have a decrease marker, which means I'll need to single crochet 2 together over the marked stitch and the next stitch. To do your single crochet 2 together, pull up a loop in each stitch, yarn over, then pull through all the loops on your hook. We'll work each side of our square in this way, being sure to chain 2 at the end of each side. When all 4 sides are complete, chain 2 and join with a slip stitch in the first single crochet of the round, and this completes your square border. Even after adding our single crochet border, our squares are still pretty curly. We want uniform squares, so we'll steam block them. I'll start by warming up my garment steamer. If you don't have a garment steamer, which I highly recommend, you can also use a steam iron instead. Connect your foam blocking boards. I especially like these ones because they have 1-inch lines on them, which will make sizing our squares for blocking even easier. Using rust-proof T-pins, begin pinning your squares to the board using the lines as a guide. I like to block Tunisian crochet with the wrong side facing up. Not only does this keep my stitch nice and plump on the front side of my work, but it also helps even more to relax the curl of my squares. Using the garment steamer, apply steam evenly across the entire block, being especially attentive to the edges of your square. Once you're done steaming, let the blocks dry completely before removing them from the boards. About 2 hours, but overnight would be even better. Begin by organizing your squares into the orientation you prefer. I've got 4 squares here, and this layout feels good to me. We're switching to a 6.5mm crochet hook to do our slip stitch seam. Using a larger hook here will ensure that our slip stitches aren't too tight and don't cause puckering in our seam. Grab your first 2 squares and hold them together with the right sides facing out. I'm using a contrast color for my seam, but you can use a light color to make your seam less obvious. Find the chain 2 space at the far right edge. Insert the hook into the back loops of each chain. Yarn over, and pull through all loops on the hook to complete the slip stitch. Find the back loops of the next stitches and slip stitch there. Repeat this until you get to the next chain 2 space. Slip stitch into the back loops of the next 2 chains. Then grab your next 2 squares and slip stitch into the back loop of their corresponding chains. Keep up with your slip stitches until you get to the end of the row and finish with a slip stitch in the first chains of the chain 2 space and fasten off. Repeat this for each horizontal seam, and vertical seams start the same way. Work right over the chain space intersections and complete your seams. Finish this step by weaving in all of your ends. The blanket border for the Holiday Tunisian Sampler is very simple, using mainly half double crochet stitches. To achieve this braided effect, rounds 2 through 4 of the border are worked in the third loop of the round before them. We'll switch back to our 6mm crochet hook and grab the first of our border colors. Join with a slip stitch in any corner chain 2 space. Chain 1 and half double crochet in that same space. Half double crochet in each single crochet until you reach the space where 2 squares meet. Here we'll do a half double crochet 2 together. Yarn over, pull up a loop in the next chain space, then pull up a loop in the following chain space. Yarn over and pull through all of the loops on your hook to complete your half double crochet 2 together. Continue in this way across the entire row, working a half double crochet in each single crochet and half double crochet 2 together where squares meet, and complete this until you get to the chain space at the end of the row. In that chain space, half double crochet, chain 2, and half double crochet again. Rotate your work to work along the next edge and repeat this process. When you finish this round, half double crochet in the final chain space, chain 2, and then join with a slip stitch in the first half double crochet of the round. Fasten off and grab your next color. Rounds 2 through 4 all look the same. We'll just change color for each round. Join with a slip stitch in the chain 2 space of the corner, chain 1, and half double crochet in the same space. We'll then camel stitch each half double crochet across the row. To do the camel stitch, locate the third loop, which sits just behind the back loop of the next stitch. Complete your half double crochet in that third loop. Camel stitch in each half double crochet across to the next chain space corner. When you reach that chain space corner, half double crochet, chain 2, and half double crochet again in that chain space. Complete this around your blanket. Finish the round with a half double crochet in the final chain space, chain 2, and join with a slip stitch in the first half double crochet of the round. Fasten off and move on to round 3. Repeat round 2. Fasten off that round 3 color and grab your round 4 color. In my blanket, I use the same color for rounds 1 and 4 of the border. With your round 4 color, repeat round 2, fasten off, and weave in all of your ends. From here, you have the option to block your full finished blanket if you want to. I chose to block my full finished blanket, and that extra step really added some polish to the final piece. From here, I strongly suggest a finished blanket happy dance. You've done a whole lot of work, and it really does show. And that is it, my loves. After all of that work, you should have a gorgeous blanket that's ready to keep you warm through the holiday season and forevermore. Now, just in case you never heard of this project, let me give you a little bit of a backstory. The Tunisian Snowy Sampler and the Crochet Amour Sampler were both part of the Double the Fun Crochet Along, initiated in November 2024. This was a 6-week long event that I did through my TLYC Makers Facebook group, my Yarn Hive community, as well as on Instagram. Each week, makers got new tutorials to learn everything from Tunisian crochet in the round and entrelac to mosaic crochet and cables. Seeing everybody's progress has really been one of the highlights of my year. I have to give so much love to everyone who undertook this project, especially during one of the busiest maker seasons of the year. I had a blast reading all of your YouTube comments on the slew of tutorials that came out, as well as seeing your updates on various social media platforms. And the cherry on top was really seeing how everybody personalized their blankets by playing around with color or mixing up the blocks, which are interchangeable between blankets. Listen, y'all worked so incredibly hard, and you deserve every bit of kudos that's coming to you. Pat yourself on the back, have an extra piece of chocolate, maybe a glass of wine. You know, that's my personal favorite. Whatever you gotta do, do it, because you did that. Now, if you missed the crochet along, don't fret. I do these multiple times a year, and there's probably one right around the corner. Make sure you signed up for my email list so you'll be the first to know for the next event. Once again, I'm Tony of TL Yarn Crafts, and just keep in mind that every stitch tells a story. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.